Hey crew, you are listening to the Radults podcast. Enjoy the show. Could you tell us who you are and what do you do?
All right. Well, I'm Lindsay Schoolcraft and I'm from Canada. I've been a musician full time for the past, 6 years. And I'm best known for being the keyboardist and backup singer in heavy metal act Cradle, Filth. But I'm also a solo artist, and I'm also part of a black metal project called Antiqva. I play the harp, I play the keyboards, and I sing. And that's the most of it.
Well, look, that's a mouthful just there on its own. So I think that even that being the most of it's still pretty impressive.
Well, thank you.
Now, most of us have gateway bands in the same way that most people with drug issues have gateway drugs. So I'm curious to know what the first musicians that you obsessed over were.
Whew, that's a loaded question because there was many decades of my life, many phases in my life. I mean, I had Disney growing up, and then there was the beauty of the 90s where at one point I just thought the Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys were like everything. And then as I grew up, there was a time during that awkward phase between elementary school and high school when I was in Canada in grade 7 and 8, and my two favorite artists were Dido and Moby, and the only reason I knew about them is because they had songs on The X-Files, which was my favorite TV show at the time, which is really weird. So I just remember sitting in my room and becoming a Pokemon master and catching them all on my Game Boy with the original games and just listening to Moby and Dido's albums on repeat. And they've been a huge influence to me now as a singer and as a songwriter. Moby's kind of my gateway drug into trip hop, so you can thank him for that. I guess Dido has that to an extent too. So then, I get in high school, and the first year, grade 9, I was really just finding myself. I was a super nerdy kid into anime and drawing, and my dreams were crushed several times by my peers. I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't really willing to follow the rules. I wanted to be a zoologist, but I literally was told by my guidance counselor I wasn't smart enough. There's a special place in the world for that person, wherever they are right now. And during that time, I found punk music, pop punk, but also punk. So that was the starting point for me to pick up an instrument and start playing again. And then from there, punk was great and everything. But, all of a sudden, I was introduced to bands like Kitty and Korn and Chevelle, and then Evanescence happened, and that was it. That was the beginning. And then when I was studying to go to school, I got really into classical studies. That's when I discovered symphonic metal. So my first introduction to symphonic metal was Nightwish and Camelot. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but those are definitely my gateway drugs.
And I mean, look, to be honest, I think that everything that you said there was the epitome of the 90s as well. So, I mean, that's always a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that, except for your guidance counselor. Like you said, there is a special place for them.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned it. You mentioned Kitty as, one of the bands that you're getting into. The very first Cradle of Filth song I ever heard was actually on a Headbangers Ball. I think it was volume 2. This is going back, I would say the early 2000s, I think it was.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that was straight after a Kitty song as well. So I mean, it sort of works, right? You've mentioned that, you watched Disney movies and growing up and you liked all that. Do you have a favorite Disney song to sing along to?
If my friend Justine, who's also the drummer in Antiqva, if she's not asking me to sing Reflection from Mulan, I refuse to sing anything off of Let It Go because I feel like it's just gotten to the point of cringe because it's been played so much the past while. The Lion King is my favorite Disney movie. But if I ever do like sing along, it's probably like A Whole New World or like Part of Your World from Little Mermaid, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there's not like, I mean, I could probably sing everything from The Lion King, including like B-sides and the stuff from the musical, like back to front. But I think what Elton John did for that movie was just fascinating. So
Brenton does do a really good Lion King singing, but we will leave that for another interview.
Darn, I was hoping to hear it today.
I wanna be a mighty king, so enemies be aware.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was really, really good. Actually, I'm really
JTT there.
impressed. Oh, hell yeah.
I wish I was JTT, but instead I just do this, which is good.
So you know what is so funny? There's like a meme going around, like if JTT was your crush, you need eye cream because you're old, and that really offended me. But then at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Truth hurts. It's all good.
Putting eye cream on during the tears coming out.
Yeah, exactly. 30s never looked more tragic, but here we are.
Wonder what happened to him.
I don't know. I don't even know if he aged well. I haven't really checked in.
I believe he just quit being an actor and ended up settling down and having children, and
good for him.
And, yeah, no one's seen or heard from him since.
Yeah, you know what? And I don't think he was the singing voice either. I think he was just the voice actor, and they actually had someone else do all the singing.
Don't ruin the illusion.
Sorry. But, I mean, the royalties he made off The Lion King, I bet he could have retired at like 14.
Oh,
honestly.
Indeed. Some people have all the luck. Someone who didn't have luck as such as skill was yourself. You ended up in the wonderful band Cradle of Filth. I'm curious how on earth you go from being a Disney-obsessed kid to being the keyboardist of Cradle of Filth. How exactly did you end up joining?
Well, the way I probably got led to there is because I did love my Disney villainesses, so they were probably like an inspiration for part of my stage persona. But yeah, Cradle of Filth was a really weird one because at the time I was like gearing up to go into university, and my partner at the time gave me like Nymphetamine and Midian. He's like, listen to these, I feel like you'd really like them. More so Midian, and I did. I like fell in love with Midian. I didn't like Cradle of Filth in high school. Like the first time I heard Cradle of Filth, I was like, the music is beautiful, but I can't stand that guy's voice. Here we are now. He's my
Dani.
boss. Yeah. So it is what it is. But yeah, I had an appreciation for them, and then I got into university, and I absolutely hated university. It's like I just didn't feel challenged. A lot of the younger students there didn't know why they were there. I always ended up like doing the whole group project, and so I would get the mark, but then lazy little shits would get the same mark as me, and they didn't deserve it. And I always like asked if I could just do the projects independently, and the teachers said no. And I was like, this is hell on earth. So during that time, they found me through a friend online, and they asked me to join. And I was like, done. I quit university. I revoked everything from like I unenrolled. Like I was like, I'm out. And that was it. That, the rest is history.
And I like how you like refuse to work with your classmates, and then you go and join a band where you're like stuck with these people like every day and don't get to do anything independently.
And no, and it's really like I did a dumb because I was in two bands locally before I went solo, and they fell apart like IKEA furniture. Like we really gave it our best, but I went solo because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to hire the people I want to work with. I have my own vision. I have enough idea. I'm going to do this myself. I always thought I needed a band, but then I realized I don't actually need a band. I can do this myself. I'm driven enough. I'm smart enough. I'm a businesswoman. As well as a very creative artist type. I can do this, and then I went solo. And then after the hype of getting into Cradle and starting the world tour, I'm on a plane to Mexico, and I'm just like, looking at Mexico City, like right as I'm landing, and I'm like, oh shit, I joined a band. Like, I don't like being in bands, you know what I mean? But like, it's Cradle of Filth, and I gave it my best shot. At first they just told me, you're only doing the shows in 2016, and that's it. And Cradle's on like a long hiatus. But that wasn't the case. So I've lasted this long.
being in such a band such as Cradle of Filth, does that allow you much time to focus on your solo material?
No, I mean, I could have been a lot farther with my solo material by now, but Cradle Filth takes priority. Cradle Filth is very demanding. Dani brings me in on the creative side of things, and he expects a lot from me. And I love it, and it is very fulfilling, but, once the tasks are completed, that's when I find my time for my solo project. And finally, I will have an album coming out this year. So finally it's going to happen, which is important.
When that happens and, your album comes out this year, do they sort of allow you the time to go and tour off that?
Yeah, what I have to do is I kind of know Cradle Filth's schedule in advance. And then from there, I just kind of do my best to work my time around them, whenever, they're, it's tough because Cradle things can come up 3 months before, and I might have tried to play in something and then I have to cancel it, which is super shit, but that's just how it rolls. Cradle is the band I have to commit to, but I make it work. I find my way, which is exciting.
Now, you've been two things that most people can say they haven't been.
Oh, dear,
and that is a member of Cradle Filth, but also a video game character.
Yeah.
What was that like? And have you actually played Karma Flow?
I never played Karma Flow, but a lot of people said they enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. We kind of laughed. My little character looked like this weird potato. So I just kind of was like, I'm a little potato, and it was cool because I got to do it with Mark from Antiqva. And it's if you ever told me I had to do it with Mark from Antiqva when I first heard Antiqva, I would have never believed it to happen. So that was really cool. Mark's really cool. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's cool. And then recently, it's been revealed that I'm a comic book character for Beelzebubs. For those who don't know, Beelzebubs is this, comedic comic book that is about a band, a black metal band that's trying to make it big. And the guy and his family are very much like a modern black metal version of the Addams Family. And it's quite funny. It's quite cheeky humor. I really love it. And it's just developed into quite the story. And then the JP Ahonen, he contacted me and said, hey, do you want to be on the upcoming album? And, do you want to be a character in the comic book? And I was like, absolutely 1000%. So we just bounced ideas off of one another, and I think we're setting me up to date one of the band members, and it's really cute. I love it. And so I like that people want to ask me to be part of these other strange creative projects, because I enjoy doing stuff like that. It gets me away from being in the band mode and doing what is always expected of me, where I can just jump into a project, play a little character, and then leave, and the rest is up to those people.
We're going to touch more on that comic in a little bit. I just wanted to mention that obviously 2019 has started off big for you. You've, like you said, embarked on a solo tour of Australia. How was that for you, and what did you enjoy best being here?
It was good. I love Australia. I have a lot of really awesome friends here, mainly because when we came here in 2013, became really good friends with the guys in Naval of Ascaris, and then they blew up, and we toured with them, and then we came back last year. So I always enjoy coming here. I didn't expect to be heckled so much when I was on stage. I don't know why that's a thing here. Apparently it's a bro thing. They think if you're friends, they can heckle you while you're up on stage. But the heckling got to be a bit much, but I found my ways around it. I dealt with it, I think, the best way possible. So yeah, there's that. And then it was a lot of fun. I had some weird kind of off the different gigs. I did a little hangout and Q&A at Frankie's Pizzeria in Sydney, and that went over really well. And then I played harp for a yoga class here in Perth, and that went over really well. So yeah, it was awesome. It was good. All my shows were fun. And then here in Perth, I had a little sing-along to Nymphetamine, and I loved it. I totally enjoyed it. I'd do it all over again if I could.
It's one of those things that I saw, obviously we'd been in contact and I saw that you were coming out and everything. And then I had to stop and think about it. I was like, Cradle were just out here, and then you get the ability to come out again as a part of a solo tour.
Yeah.
It's definitely cool.
It is. I feel really lucky. It's in the past 12 months, I've been to Russia twice and I've been to Australia twice, and not many people can say that.
Well, no, they're definitely not similar in any way.
No.
I must apologise for the Australian love of heckling people. It's one of the less glamorous things that we got handed down by our British overlords.
It's okay. It's all good.
But at least we're actually good at things.
This is true. This is very, very true.
That one at all.
No, I like. No offense to Britain, I prefer to go Australia than to the UK. Sorry, guys.
I feel like we got to say sorry to Dani again.
No, don't apologize. He's fine. He's got thick skin. I don't even think he cares.
Does he even identify as British?
Yes. Unfortunately.
He does. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he just identified as Dani Filth.
Well, I mean,
yeah, but that's caused him problems with like pretending to be like the vampire lord and all that crap. So
wonderful. Now, everything that you've spoken about so far is very in keeping with the theme of this podcast, which is people who just refuse to take no for an answer and just pursue their dreams no matter what. Did you ever think that you would have wound up involved in so many cool projects, or has it taken you by surprise?
It's definitely taken me by surprise, and like I was a bit of a crazy person, and from mid-August until now, I went to school to become a cosmetologist. I took up a job as a makeup artist. I was working with Cradle Filth, getting ready to release my solo album. And, during all that, I had a choice. I'm like, do I sleep or go to the gym? So I dropped the gym, unfortunately, which hasn't been good for me, but I've learned to live with it. But during that time, I got asked to do 2 collaborations. And I was just like, well, I can't say no. These are fantastic. Like, I'd be stupid to pass these things up. And that's the thing. I think my resolution for 2019 is to take on way less because, I don't know if I can do another 4 months like that ever again. It requires a lot of planning and organization and doing what is necessary when you don't feel like doing it. And that's hard. That can wear you down pretty quickly.
Well, I guess taking on stress is like a workout anyway, right? So you sort of balance that out.
I tried. I don't know how well I did it, but I definitely tried.
I think you learned a valuable lesson that I try and preach to everybody. That is that you can do so much in a day.
Yeah. You can just set an alarm for like each task and just try to get as much of it done as possible.
We're going back to the comic now. As you've said, it focuses on the everyday challenges of family life, like raising kids, running a small business, making time for worship, except, like obviously their kids are who they are. The business is a black metal band and, the worship isn't exactly aimed upstairs. How did this come about? When JP approached you, or like what was the lead up to JP coming to you that made this happen?
Well, I mean, I've known about the Beelzebub comics for like years because they've always been floating around the internet. Like the popular one is like the 2 guys standing there and he's like, oh, what metal band's that? And he's like, oh, it's just dried vomit. And then he's like, oh, I've never heard of them. And you know what I mean? And those like, and then the one where like Harpist like wants more and more spikes on his stage outfit. And he's like, it's just really cute. So I knew about them, but then it didn't really come to my attention until recently. It was more on a personal level so my partner is a drummer in a progressive groove death metal band. And then I'm like the queen of darkness over here with like Cradle Filth. So everyone thinks like we're very much opposites, even though music brings us together. And then in the story, the head of the band, his daughter, her name's Lilith, which funny enough, my harp is named Lilith. She falls in love for this nerdy prog kid in high school who's also a drummer. And then everyone started tagging us in these comics. Like all of my close friends in the metal scene, they're like, oh my God, Sam and Lilith is like you and Dylan. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So then, because of that, I started like catching up. I'm like, man, I remember this comic. I'm going to catch up on it. Da, 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 da. And of course, with my luck, the day I decided to like get the ovaries of steel to like talk to the writer, I was in Finland. I found out he's from north of Helsinki, and he's like, man, if you got a hold of me earlier, I would have been there today, because Cradle was playing a show that day in Helsinki in Finland. And I'm like, well, shit. Like, we just felt so stupid But yeah, you know, all of a sudden things started progressing, and they got asked by Century Media to do a song, and then the song did really well, and I wrote JP. And like JP and I just have like the same sense of humor. Like we just keep in touch and make fun of black metal and all that. I was Lilith and my boyfriend was Sam for Halloween this past year. I think we did a pretty okay job of doing those outfits. It was cute.
It definitely was. I saw the photos. I definitely thought it was well done.
Well, it was pretty easy. We were ourselves.
Yeah, that sounds like it should be the artwork for this episode.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. Go for it. You can take it off my Facebook. Yeah, and then he approached me and said, hey, like, do you want to sing on a song? And I was like, yeah. And then it turned in a few more songs, and I'm like, whatever, like, I'll do it. I love this project. I love the music. So I don't want to give too much away because that's for JP. It's his project and all that. But yeah, it's a huge honor, and I love my little character now. And I'm really excited to see where it progresses. And the whole thing with the bassist in the band, Harpist, who I think was loosely based off of like Abbas and a little bit of Orion from Behemoth, is like, I bought the pillow because I needed pillows for my bed, and I bought the Harpist pillow, and then I got really sick with bronchitis, and I took a picture of me like hugging Harpist, and then the writer was just like, oh, he's your boyfriend. I'm like, actually, we should make him my boyfriend in the comic. I think it's about time he got off Tinder and got a decent girlfriend. So we'll see. I think it's gonna progress into something really awesome. So I'm excited for the future of the project. Yeah.
I think it's time we take a rad break, Mike, don't you?
Yeah, look, I think that we should do that, and I'll let you take the lead with this one, Brenton.
What we do here, Lindsay, is we play a little game with you, which we call a rad break. The rules are very, very simple. The first game we're going to play is Radult or Battle. We will ask you some people's names, and you tell us if they are Radults or Battles.
Does that mean like they're rad or they're bad?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, just confirming, because I'm like, what the hell? Okay.
All right, so the category for you is going to be Disney villains.
Okay.
And the first person in question is Cruella de Vil. Radult or Battult?
Oh, she's a Battult. She wears fur. No way.
Oh, I like that. That's a good answer. There could be so many different answers, like stealing puppies or that, and you just went straight for the fur.
Yeah. I don't like her.
Yeah. Confirmed Battult. Well done, Disney. The second character in question is Jafar. Radult or Battult?
It's been so long since I've followed his story. I'd say he's a Battult. He's such a crotchety dude. I never liked him. I don't remember
that facial hair.
Oh,
that facial
tragic.
hair. Ugh.
Tragic.
I kind of fear for my love of that movie now that there's the remake coming out, but I digress.
I don't even want to see The Lion King in HD. I'm like, can't we just write new stories? Like, why do we have to redo everything in HD? Why? What is the
Disney,
point?
Battles, Disney.
Yeah, it's Disney all around right now.
First they killed Star Wars, then they came for our childhood heroes.
I know.
All right, and the third character I'm going to ask you is Ursula, Radult or a Battult?
I think she's a Radult because you know what? She's kind of like Scar. She knew what she wanted. She went for it. Ariel shouldn't have been so stupidly in love and naive. We all have choices in life, and people just are the way they are. And it's like the balance of the universe. If you want something, you have to give up something or make sacrifice in order to get it, right? And that was it. And I think Ursula's a Radult. Like, okay, yeah, she kicked the dog in the head in one scene, and that was really shit. Again, I don't like the abuse of dogs. But like she was just doing what she does best, and that's being a badass and going for what she wants in life. And sometimes, like, I don't agree with the way she did it, but she's definitely motivation for like, you got a choice and, go for it. But I don't always agree on her approach, but I do. Like, I'd say, like, I don't know if I'd say Scar was a Radult, but he did kind of kill a lot of people, or kill off a lot of characters. But
yeah, he did have that like creepy Third Reich mimicking March moment as well.
Yeah. I just look at his character. I like Jeremy Irons too, so I'm like.
And he has the best song in the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared.
Yep, it's good stuff.
Now, I'm just going to say that I think that Ursula is also a Radult now. But when I was a child, I thought she was a Badult because the first time I saw that movie, I hid under the seat in the movie theater and started bawling my eyes out the minute she came on screen.
You probably just have like an octopus phobia or something.
I now think they're fascinating and intelligent, but I was petrified
good.
of them for about 12 years.
That's fine. That's fine.
He stays away from calamari.
Yeah, good idea.
There's one last game in this Rad break. It's a nice, easy one, very short. So this one is called Rad or Fad. So again, pretty much the same sort of thing. Is it cool or is it a fad? And the one for you is Australian Heat. Is it rad or is it a fad?
It's neither. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. It's how could anyone even want it to be a fad? I'm not like, granted, I'm happy I'm not -10 right now, but I'm also not enjoying being soggy and sweating all the time. So
would you rather be in this heat, or would you like in this constant heat, or would you want to be in like constant freezing weather?
I'd rather be in the heat, let me tell you.
Yeah, I am not a fan of the Canadian cold, I've got to say.
Yeah, it's not much fun. I'm not looking forward to going back to like -10 on Wednesday. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I actually saw a post from my roommate, and he's like, I'm a shut-in now. I'm not leaving the house, so send me podcasts. And I'm like, oh, damn, it must be cold there right now.
Sounds like we've got a Radults listener waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that we have a couple more questions for you. The first one I'm going to ask you is about your solo record, which is coming out later this year. What can listeners expect from this release, and what were you hoping that you would achieve from it?
I just want to get it out there. I want people to hear it. I want it, like the stories, to help people, how it's helped me. I'm kind of past the point of like, you know, I want to get more famous of it, and I want to get all my money back because I did invest quite a bit of money into it. I just more want people to hear it. You know, what's to be expected is it's like a tribute to all the music I really liked in the early 2000s, but I did a few things differently than what was to be expected of the music at the time. I added in the electric harp, and I made it dual with the guitars, and I distorted it, and I put chorus on it. It's kind of like influenced by Korn. And I did some children's choir. I have Gregorian chant, Orthodox chant, tastefully done, not like overly saturated and you get like sick of it. But you know, the person I wrote it with, we just really wanted to write an album that was like just music that really moves people, whether it's heavy or sad or angry, whatever it may be. We took 2 years to write it around Cradle, Filth, and their projects. I'm really proud of the outcome. We actually had to cap. At one point, we had like 17 songs on the go, and we're like, we need to cap it off and pick 11 and end it there, or else we're just going to keep writing and we're never going to get this album done. So it's nice because moving forward with the next album, there's already material available. But it wasn't that the songs weren't good, it's just that they weren't completed at the time, so they didn't make it. I'm really excited for the world to hear it. And it's no secret now, on one of the songs, Zanoir from Nabla Viscaris, he contributed his guttural vocals. It's the heaviest song on the album. It was quite soothing. So yeah, that's my guest singer on the album, and I'm really happy about that.
That is awesome to hear. So I've got a couple of questions for you based on what we've spoken about. First one being, when can listeners expect for the album to drop?
Well, I got to go home, but anytime from the next, like I got to go home and figure out the release date, but anytime from the next 3 to 6 months. I'll start dropping songs as singles, like probably in the next 2 months.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
The next question that I want to ask that also leads into the following question is, I guess anyone who is looking to follow their creative path, and you know, whether that be in music or in art or acting or anything that is an art form, what advice would you give them in moving forward and making it into a reality like you have?
Well, when you're starting out, know exactly what it is that you want to do. Do you want to be known as a guitarist? Do you want to be known as a songwriter? Do you want to be known as a producer? Focus on one thing, like focus on the one thing that you really want to do. Like, you know, whether you're an artist or a dancer, actress, whatever you want to do, be that one thing and do it very, very well. And only when you start to get traction and establish yourself, then you can bring in all these extra things. Do you know what I mean? I'm at the point in my career where I can bring in all these extra things because I've established myself in other things. I did the stupid of doing too much last year, and now I'm bringing it back to I am Lindsay Schoolcraft, the musician / composer, and that's what this year is going to be about. But I think getting really good at that one thing that you want to be known as and you want to establish yourself as, and learning how to brand and market yourself that way is the most important things. Definitely take all the opportunities that are thrown your way. They are learning experiences. They will help you build your name and your resume. It's tough. You know, you got to work it around family and relationships and friendships and working a day job. Try to find a day job that's within your interests, that is something you relatively like doing, that helps fuel your passion. That's very important. I used to do coffee shop jobs. I worked at a music store for a bit. Like, I've done a lot of different side jobs, but I enjoyed them every step of the way. And I think something that's also really important is practicing gratitude and being grateful for anything that you're given. Without gratitude and without enjoying what you have, you lose sight of how far you've come. And I think that's important. And that's something that people need to really take into practice. There's been times where I forgot to practice gratitude and see how far I've come, and it made me just miserable. And I don't want, I mean, it's part of the journey and the lesson, but I don't want to see people be tied down to their bad feelings because they can't see things for what they really are. And that comes with practice, though, definitely.
No, and that's definitely it. I mean, obviously, you come across as someone who's really humble. What
Sure.
you've said as well is just because you practice the gratitude, it doesn't sound like you take anything for granted. You've said a couple of times that you've been fortunate to do, this, or fortunate to do that. And whereas people, even in your situation, could be like, oh, yeah, that's an everyday thing, and sort of like palm it off as just that. Whereas you've said that you're fortunate.
Yeah, I do feel very lucky, because there were times in my life when the people who were most important to me told me that, I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't enough. I wasn't going to be good enough. And it hurt, but it was the fuel to kind of be like, to prove them wrong. Some of them came around. Some of them I don't even talk to anymore. And, when things do happen and it's further proof that I can accomplish my goals and dreams, I show gratitude for that, because, I mean, where I'm from, it's a small town with a small scene, and so many bands want to break out from there. And I feel like the one who got out, and it's hard. And, a big thing that can hold you back is getting involved with a scene that's toxic and values partying and drugs and all the wrong things. And it takes that awareness and that pulling your kind of self out. And the thing is like, I did have haters and people who talk shit about me when I got with Cradle, or when my first band, like out of high school, got on Warped Tour. There was a lot of hate. And, it's just because they're upset because you're accomplishing something and they want it too, but they just waste their time on the wrong things. And I think taking a step back and planning and focusing is important. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how to do that. And at the end of the day, I have compassion for them and I sympathize with them. But, at the same time, it's like I got out of that, and I feel really lucky that I did, because I go back home and I actually met up with a friend in Sydney who is from the same hometown as me. And when I saw her, we caught up. She was adorable. And she's like, how do you still live there? And I'm like, well, I'm not there long enough to hate it. I travel so much that by the time I get sick of it there, I already have a flight coming up in a few days or in a week or so. So it's not that bad. Do you know what I mean? I mean, my hometown's known for having a car factory, which is about to close down. And we filmed some of the Stephen King's remake of it there. And we also have the X-Men mansion there, which is like where a lot of weddings happen. I've been to a few weddings there. So like, there's not a lot there, but I do have a lot of good people there that I love and I focus on. And since I don't have to work at the local bar there anymore, there's like a music venue for the metal scene there. That really wore me out. Now that I don't work there anymore, I think I enjoy being in my hometown a lot better, a lot more these days.
Definitely sounds like it. One last question from me before I'll let Brenton take it away and wrap things up is you come across as a very positive person. We've spoken about positivity. How do you maintain that, and what works for you that I guess listeners could then also get into and take away from it?
I think it comes with, I meditate for like 5 to 10 minutes every morning. But what I do is because there's some days you wake up and your body hurts and like you're stressed out and your energy's been drained, and that happens to everyone. And I just think it comes with, the more you focus on the good you have in the life, the better your life gets. The more you focus on the bad and the negative, the worse your life gets. And, I used to be a very emotionally driven person, and I found that got me in a lot of trouble because the emotions weren't always necessarily positive. And that's kind of how I approach it. And my biggest breakthrough lately is kind of stepping back and understanding that anything people do or say or act upon is a reflection of them and not necessarily a reflection of me if I'm involved. And that was a huge breakthrough for me in the past few months. And it's not that I'm emotionally detached. I'm just emotionally protective of myself, because if I get too involved in my emotions, I can drain myself. And then that's me like potentially ruining a day for myself, or like waking up the next day and not having the energy to do what I want to do with my time. But yeah, I think, focusing on what you do have, I've been through some really dark and hard times in my life. And there was a time where like I went through a really bad slump and I was around the wrong people. And a friend of mine told me, at the end of every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for and 3 awesome things that happened today. And I went back and found that book recently when I moved. And it was interesting because even like, I always wrote down the 3 things that I was really grateful for at that moment. And it was really cute. Sometimes it would just be even like my cat, but then like focusing on the positive, it even got down to like my shower, like things, like good things that happened that day. It'd be like my shower got fixed, or like I had a really great meal, or like I was able to pay the rent. And it really makes you realize like, wow, like us living in the first world have so much to be grateful for. And it's just like the basic minimum things. Like even after I had a battle with bronchitis in December, getting back my breathing, like being able to breathe properly, was huge for me as a singer. And I think that's like basic human functions is something that we even take for granted as well. Yeah, so that was a big one.
Brilliant. I think that's all fantastic advice, and it definitely ties in with what this podcast is all about, which is very much a positive mental attitude kind of vibe. And
That's awesome.
I'm very thankful for your input on this podcast. Before we do let you get back to the wonderful city of Perth and their fabulous beaches.
Yes.
and that their sunsets are some of the most amazing in Australia too. So Perth, well done. Go embrace that. I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell our listeners where they can find you on all the social networks and when they can listen to your wonderful music.
Absolutely. You can go to my Bandcamp website. It's schoolcraftmusic.bandcamp.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter is @LindsRiot. So it's @LINDZRIOT. But if you just search Lindsay Schoolcraft, I'll show up. And yeah, and you can find me as Lindsay Schoolcraft on Facebook. I have a fan page there with a verified blue tick next to it. And that's where you can keep in touch with me.
You're a real deal when you have that blue tick.
Yes, and I'm waiting for it to come through on Instagram. It's been, I almost had it, and then Instagram changed its infrastructure, and now my management's trying to get it. It's a right pain in the arse, let me tell you.
I like that you have management that's like one of their roles right now is to get that verification tick.
They care. They're good people. They really are.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us. It has been awesome. We could say that it's been rad having you.
Cheers.
Enjoy the rest of your night in Perth, and we look
you.
forward to seeing what comes out with 2019 for you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care now, okay?